Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Thursday. Sorry I missed last night. If you guys didn't get it, I shot out this massive email blast to everybody that's a GuitarGate member to see if anybody wanted to talk and give me some feedback as we're getting ready to launch the new site. So if you didn't get that and you want to talk, I'm kind of making time for people to do Skypes or phone calls or this, that, and the other, and talk about learning guitar online. What you like, what you don't like, what I do well, what I don't do well, what your goals are, etc., etc. So last night I was, did 4 or 5 phone calls and did a bunch all day today, and there's a bunch scheduled for tomorrow and next week, and I'm just trying to make the new GuitarGate as helpful as I possibly can for all of you. So that's kind of what I've been up to. Let's take a look, see who's here. Ken, yes, you made it. Awesome. Daniel, good to see you. Riley, hey brother, good to see you guys. Yeah, so I'm just kind of here hanging out. I just put the kids to sleep, and I didn't really know what kind of video I was going to make tonight. I'm trying to do, 4 to 5 a week, maybe 1 a day kind of deal, if possible. And so if you guys have any specific topic you'd like to talk about, I'm more than open to it. So I'm just going to kind of play for you guys a little bit. If anybody's got a question up there, anything in particular, you can throw it up. But, yeah, I'm just going to kind of noodle. We're live. Ask me anything. All right, let's see what we got here. Riley, I don't, I don't know that solo. Mike, good to see you. Mixolydian ideas. So, if you guys aren't familiar with what Mixolydian is and what Mike is kind of referring to, Mixolydian is when you build a scale with the root being on your 5 chord. So, like if you're in the key of C, your 5 chord is G. More specifically, it's G7, G dominant 7. And so you're going to basically play the C major scale starting and ending on G. G is your focus, but you're still using, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B, right? There's no sharps, no flats, because you're still in the key of C. That's G Mixolydian. And the purpose of G Mixolydian is really to kind of sound out that 5 chord, right? You're really trying to sound like that dominant 5 chord. And what does that sound like? It is the sound of the major third and the flat 7th. That is what it is. And that sound demands resolution back to whatever key center you're in, whatever tonic you're in. So again, if you're in the key of C, G7, which is a G major chord, but I'm getting rid of one root, and I'm putting an F in there. That's the flat 7. The sound of this chord, what you're really hearing, right, is that B and that F. That's that major third and the flat 7 in G. So anytime you're thinking about a Mixolydian kind of idea, right, first you want to realize that whatever progression you pick should, give you the sound of a 5 chord, right? If you're not trying to go like full blues, you're just trying to think of something cool in Mixolydian, you want to make a progression that accentuates the 5 chord and not like it's just a 1 chord. So for example, in the key of C, your major chords are going to be C, F, and G. So if you had a song that, say, for example, like say it goes G, F, that would be a 5 chord and a 4 chord in the key of C. But since I'm never going back to C, and well, I should say that differently. Since C is not emphasized, your tonal center is about that G. So if you're playing over this G and your progression goes G and F, you want to say something about G, about G7, about the G, the B, and definitely that F, that flat 7. So what Mixolydian is a regular major scale, but instead of a regular 7, it's a flat 7. So you can think G major pentatonic, but then with an F. And you'll really get that Mixolydian sound. You hear it? There's that B, it's that third, right? It's the third of G. It sounds like you're in G major. And then there's that F, which is obviously the root of your 4 chord, and this is the flat 7 of G, right? So you really hear that change. That sound right there, going from a 5 chord to a 4 chord, and then have the melody going from the third to the flat 7th. that is the sound of Mixolydian. There's a little Mixolydian, little improv for you. Hopefully that's helpful. And if you noticed, because I wasn't playing with the backing track or another guitar player or anything else like that, I was trying to grab little pieces of both a G major chord and an F major chord up the neck. If you wanted to sound even more jazzy, you know, a little more outside-ish, if you want to call it that, you could actually make them the 7th chord. So you could do G7 to F major 7, and you'd get that, you know. But that's a little too floaty for me at the moment. I'm not really feeling like I have licks for that right now. But you have that option too. I was just playing major triads, if anybody was curious. All right, let's see what else we have up here. So Dave asked, the hybrid picking, are you using your pinky at all? Absolutely. Oh yeah. The pinky is absolutely crucial. Let me see if I can maybe turn a little bit and get a little different angle here. But yeah, the pinky, absolutely. So basically you have a triad. So let's say I'm playing. Your basic approach to hybrid picking, in terms of breaking things up, is you're looking for a root or whatever a bass note is, and then you have the other 3 fingers, which are going to go after triads. You know, they're looking for the skeleton of chord tones. That's the easiest way to kind of start subdividing it physically. So let's say, let's do the same exact phrase I was doing before. If I'm in G and then F, when I'm hybrid picking, my pick is playing the bass notes. So maybe it's G, and then maybe I'm getting a little D here. If I want to go back and forth with the you know, the root and the 5th, and then the top 3 fingers are grabbing that triad. So this would be the 4-3-2 string. So the G, B, and D, or if I wanted to, do the inversion, the first inversion with the B down here, and get the top 3 strings of the G major chord. And so that's always kind of the thing, that classic country sound like that. All the thumb is doing and the pick is doing is alternating on the bass notes. And then the top 3 fingers are grabbing triad. So you got to have the pinky because there's 3 notes in a triad, right? And as you move that, had a conversation with someone today who requested just like a hybrid picking course, like step by step how to work on hybrid picking. I'm obsessed with it, if you guys can't tell. I started my life as a metalhead, like doing just like, fast picking, doing all the bad things with the elbow and the wrists and everything. Then I got real into country bluegrass stuff, and I started picking banjo. And I got a lot of the rolls down with just my hand, A little sloppy. But then, I started kind of doing the pick and finger hybrid thing. And once you get in the feel for that, it's pretty hard to go back because it works for so many different genres. Especially, slower stuff, jazzier stuff where you're doing a lot of root movement versus chord compings, kind of like what we were doing before that. Hybrid picking is great. So yeah, moral of the story, a very basic approach to hybrid picking is your pick, doing bass notes, doing bass lines, all your voice leading on the bass strings, and your top three are grabbing triads. And then obviously, you can fill leads and stuff in between there, but that's the basic structure of it physically. So Steven says, hey Steven, good to see you. I can barely handle pentatonic. I can't even think about the other mode scales. You know what? Don't then. Don't ever feel like you need to jump ahead, way past your comfort zone, just because something exists, right? When I kind of touched on it, but when I was talking about Mixolydian, basically just said, hey, start with the pentatonic, and then add a flat 7. So like the major pentatonic for G, right, be 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, right? Now, instead of that 6, or in addition to, you just kind of add that flat 7 if you want to get that sound. You don't have to think like you have to learn all the different patterns of all the modes to start. If you wanted to jam over that exact progression I was doing, that G and F, and you only knew G major pentatonic, right? Right? All you would do is, okay, you know that. And now where is an F around here? You got, right? That's an F. And then there's another F, third fret, fourth string. So in this position, right, you have an F, 6th fret, 2nd string, and 3rd fret, 4th string. All you want to do is whenever you want to sound more Mixolydian, sound more bluesy, sound like that F, just hit an F. Besides that, keep doing it in G. I'll show you. Watch. I'll keep it real simple. Doing there is I'm thinking about the 5 notes I have for the pentatonic scale, and I'm staying just on these top 4 strings. I'm not even messing with these lower strings. And I'm just thinking to myself, whenever it sounds too nice and too pretty, throw an F in there. For any of you guys that are big Grateful Dead fans, or if you're Fish fans, I was just talking to a dude on the internet that's a big Fish fan that likes Trey. That is something you're going to see, or hear I should say, all the time. That super nice, clean, major lines, you know. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, there's a flat 7 in there. That's that Mixolydian sound. When I think of that genre, I mean, that more than anything, I mean, that sound just, especially when they do the, you know, they kind of grab it and throw it in there. Trey does that stuff a lot, which is a lot of fun. But anyway, yeah, you don't need to get started playing over modal progressions, you know, or something that doesn't go back to the tonic. You just need to figure out what chord is kind of the key center. So in this, I'm only playing G and F, but it's sounding like the G is the key center. Find that corresponding pentatonic scale. So if it's G major, it'd be the G major pentatonic scale. And then, you know, find that one note that makes it that mode, right? So if it's the 5, it's the flat 7, so it's the F. But even easier than that, especially if you're just doing a 2-chord little thing, what is the root of the other chord? Or what is the 3rd, or what is the 5th? The note is always going to be a chord tone of the other chord. I mean, that's it. That's it. So, you know, if I'm in, same thing, if I'm just G and F, I'm just thinking G. And whenever I want a little color, you know, a little something extra, I'm throwing some F's in there, because F is the other chord. That's it. That is how you get started playing modally and thinking modally. You know, you have a progression, you have a chord focus, which is not the tonic. So it's not C, right? There's no C in that. And then you figure out, you know, the corresponding pentatonic scale that fits with that key center. And then the extra notes, the missing notes, the modal notes, they're going to be the chord tones of the other chord in the progression. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, Mike, glad that helps. Yeah, Joseph, this bullet is awesome. I'm glad, you know, any of you guys just saw that video I made with the bullet. People are emailing me and sending me YouTube things. They're like, dude, what is that beat up thing hanging on the wall back there? And I'll tell you what, this bullet through this Dr. Z, it's pretty hard to beat, dude. I mean, I know I'm just on an iPhone microphone right now. It's a great guitar. It doesn't have the big, gigantic sustain of like the PRS, you know, and it certainly doesn't have all the fun stuff of the, you know, like a locking Floyd Rose like that Peavey back there. But for that single coil spank, man, for something that's just super easy to play, this really might be my favorite guitar. It is pretty awesome. Oh, I'm glad it sounds magical from where you're sitting. That's great. Steven, I'm glad you can hear that change. That's great. And Dave, yeah, good. Keep messing with it. I'm glad that that's helpful. This, you know, and this is a really good point, and I bring this up a lot in a lot of my teaching stuff. But whenever you're in doubt about what you can play, just look at the chord tones. You know, things exist in context. It's always in context. So if you have 2 chords or 3 chords and you're not sure which, you know, what to play over them, what sounds good, you know, how to what your options are, the first thing you want to do is figure out where is the center, just audibly, like with your ear. You know, let's say you're in A minor, right? Let's say you have a progression that goes like. Now, I'm still in the key of C because A minor would be a 6, G would be the 5, and F would be the 4. But the G is no longer, it doesn't sound like the focus of the tune like it did when I was just playing G and F. And a lot of it has to do with the rhythm. You know, you're accentuating what you choose to accentuate. But when I played this, you know, the way I'm playing this, you hear that A kind of as not the, you know, the one, it's the focus, right? You hear that A, even though you know we're in the key of C and we're never hitting a C, but you know that that's the focus. So if that's the focus, and you're A minor, you know you're A minor pentatonic, everybody knows this. Right? Just start with that simple box, and then think to yourself, when it goes down to the G, if I want to say something about that G, if I want to sound a little more modal, right, meaning I'm hearing those specific changes, what really changes? What are the chord tones? Well, you have a G, so that's the flat 7 in the key of A. You know, that's the root movement. And then you also, the other big one is going to be the B, which will be the 2 in A. So hear that? So if I want to sound like the G a little bit out of A minor pentatonic, basically I already have the flat 7, I already have that G that's in the A minor pentatonic, but anytime I add that B, that's the third. It's always about thirds and sevenths. You're really going to hear it. Check this out. So right now I'm just doing A minor and G. And now when you go to add in the F, now where is the F? You have an F, so that's now the flat 6, or part of the, you know, if you were going to think in full modal, this would be the, you know, the full minor scale, right? So now you have a flat 6 in the key of A, right? Then your third is that A. So we're in the key of A minor, right? We're in the key of A minor, so that's already there. So what you really want to focus on is just hitting that F. So you follow the root notes down. And that's, I know we went on a long tangent here, but that's kind of the beginning way to think about, you know, modal playing, which just means focusing on the chord tones, a chord focus, which is something other than the one chord. And the best way to do that, again, look at your progression, figure out which chord is the focus of the tune. It's getting the most emphasis, you're sounding it out. And then when it comes to the other chords, so you get that chord, and then figure out the pentatonic scale which corresponds to that. So for this, it'd be the A minor pentatonic scale. We all know how to do that. If you want to sound just fine playing over all that, just think A minor pentatonic, call it a day. If you want to sound more modal, meaning you want to sound out more of the different chord tones, you look at the different chords, start with the root and the third, right? The root and the third and the seventh. Those are like the main ones. And see if any of those are actual changes, new notes to that pentatonic scale. If they are, hit them. You'll hear the change. That's it. Don't overthink it. That's it. Thanks, Ken. I appreciate that. Rodrigo, any advice on how to work with the band as a guitarist? That is a good question. And it is so band specific. And actually, the band that I'm in right now, I've been talking to the bass player and the drummer, and we were thinking it might be helpful to do like a rhythm section workshop and just show exactly how we choose parts, like you see me kind of outline in these Learn the Song lessons, how we choose parts to use or to not use based on the strengths, weaknesses, and pieces that are in our band. So the main thing that I really feel guitarists get wrong when working with the band is they step on the bass player's zone. So let's say so in other words, if you have a well-rounded band, you should have low sounds, mid-range sounds, and you should have high part sounds. Now I'm overgeneralizing here, but you understand the concept. Meaning, not everybody. You can't have 5 people in a band and everybody's playing the lowest notes possible on their instruments. It just sounds like mud. The sound guy's not going to be able to get you through the mix, this, that, or the other. So, especially when you're in a live situation, it never makes sense almost never makes sense for 2 guitar players to play the exact same part. There are, AC/DC songs or like Green Day songs or whatever where it's pretty much all power chords and that's that sound. But for the most part, whenever you start getting into actual triads, major and minor chords, not just power chords or single note runs like you find in, metal thrash stuff, it makes sense to find a low part, find a mid-range part, and find a high part. And one of the things I see a lot of guitar players do, which I struggle with all the time, is learning stuff exactly how it is on the record, going to rehearsal, playing it just like that, and the bass player doing the same thing, going home, learning what's on the record, or at least close to it, and you coming in and it doesn't sound good, or it sounds muddy, it sounds washed out, there's no definition. And a lot of that is because, depending on how your bass player is playing their line, and how deep they are, how much they're following the melody, you as a guitar player need to pick something which allows that to kind of be its own thing, and not double it. Now again, if you're in a metal band and everybody's grinding on the same riff, of course this doesn't apply, right? Because that is that sound. But that sound works with that genre. But whenever you start getting into more piece bands that are doing more complex chords, more complex harmonically in the sense that more things are ringing out at the same time, you need to create more distance in the overall bandwidth of what you're hearing so that everything can stand out. I hope I'm not being too vague about this. I know it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like this. If you play with a lot of distortion, the amount of notes that you can play at the same time that are audible, that are clear, that are distinct, are basically, it's 1 or basically 2. That's why you don't see a lot of metal stuff, a lot of thrash, a lot of grind. Like, you don't see a lot of, Pantera, Slayer type stuff playing 3 and 4 note chords. You can see them play power chords where they're doubling the root, doubling the fifth, or they might be playing 6 notes, but there's only the root and the fifth. But as far as getting a thirds and the seventh to ring out, when you're in high gain situations, the way that gain works is, a lot of those notes are going to be kind of covered up. They're going to be saturated. They're not going to be clean. They're not going to shine through. So that's why it works in that genre, because that sound, that timbre of the guitar, that heavily distorted guitar, lends itself to playing one note or these little sharp little dyads, because that's all the distortion will kind of let you bleed through in a way that sounds good. So if you're playing other types of songs, even regular rock and roll where you're just doing, just some basic overdrive or some dirt, if you're playing triads or anything with 7th chords, and your bass player is down here kind of holding down the root, you don't want to get in his zone and double that if he's, maybe playing it higher and you kind of have the same range on your guitar. You want to make a point to, depending on how many pieces are in your band, to make sure that no one is in each other's zone unless it's a spot where it's appropriate. And I think I know that's a very long-winded answer to your question, but I think that is one specific area where guitarists can really help the sound of a whole band, which is not to just learn what they hear on the record, but to learn, kind of what the song is, and then when you go into rehearsal, if the chord progression is A minor, F, and G, don't have the bass player go, A, F, G, and then 2 guitar players go A minor, F, G in big power chords, and everybody does the same thing, and wonder why there's no definition, there's no clarity, there's nothing extra, because everybody's kind of stepping on each other. So if the bass player's down here going, it makes sense for maybe one guitar to go, and then another guitar, or keyboards if you have it, you see what I mean? And then typically the vocals will be the one to carry the melody, or if it's your turn to take a lead, it's your turn to carry the melody. And while you can use the whole span of the instrument, you also want to be conscious of the highest things tend to sit on top, and those are the things that people remember. And so that's why the voices are usually up there, right? Anyhow, botched that last note. But that's kind of the point. I know that's a very long answer to your question, but learn songs, play them with bands, and don't just try to do them note for note together, just like you hear on the record. Learn the essence of the song, come together, and figure out the point of what the song is about, and figure out the different parts, with the goal always being that no one is in everybody else's zone, and try to have a low, a middle, and a high, and support the melody, unless you're playing a genre like, super distorted, heavy metal type thing, where the actual sound of the amplifiers and the screaming of the vocals lends itself to less arrangement. I hope that makes sense. Dave, how come you don't post any videos of your band? Do you guys have a YouTube page? Dave, this is a funny question. Long story short, we have an agency, we're part of an agency here in Baltimore, and we do have a Facebook page. It's called What's Next. You can search us. But we don't have a YouTube channel, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that we were in an agency. They wanted to produce videos for us to send out to the clubs, and we had a couple different things happened where we lost a singer and then we lost a bass player, and we kind of had to restructure. And just in the past couple months, we got it all figured out. So I just started a YouTube channel, and what I'm going to start doing is tagging videos of us playing songs of the Learn the Song ones I'm teaching in those YouTube lessons to give examples if you guys think it would be helpful. So I'm sorry about that, but there needs to be more footage, and that's going to happen because it needs to happen. And yeah, I'm going to leave it there. So happy Thursday to you guys. And again, anybody that's interested in sharing their 2 cents about learning guitar online, or how I can do better, and how other people can do better, and just anything you want to share as I get ready to launch the new GuitarGate, please shoot me an email, support@guitargate.com, and we'll figure out a time to maybe jump on the phone or Skype or do something like that, because I'm trying to hear from as many of you as possible, so that I learn who you guys are, what your goals are, what you want, and how I can do my job better. And I hope you find this helpful, and happy Thursday. Talk to you guys real soon. And keep it in your hands.